All right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope everybody here is doing well, and that Allahumma barik, you're enjoying this beautiful weather, snow in mid-May, alhamdulillah. Just Calgary being the usual city that we know and love. Anyhow, so as you can tell, for today's session, we did have to go online. We could not do it in person just because the classroom was actually booked for another event by someone else, I guess. However, that is only for today, inshallah. So next Saturday, inshallah, we will be resuming these classes in the actual hall, or sorry, in the actual classroom as usual. So let's continue from where we had stopped in the last week. So I hope you guys still kept your notes that I handed out from the last week, because we didn't actually get to finish all of the sections because of the quiz that we had last week. Um, so last week, just to kind of give a quick recap of what we discussed, we began the discussion of Surah An-Nazi'at, right? And we mentioned it is a Meccan surah. We talked about the first section of Surah An-Nazi'at. So we mentioned the backstory, or we mentioned, in fact, that there isn't really a backstory behind Surah An-Nazi'at. And we mentioned some surahs in the Quran, they actually have a story that took place, and as a result of what happened, a surah would get revealed. And other surahs, like Surah Al-Nazi'at, there isn't really a story that happened. We just know some details here and there. For example, we know that the people of Quraysh in Mecca, the disbelievers, whenever they were told about the resurrection, that they will be brought back to life, they would make fun of this idea, and they would mock this possibility that, how do you really think that once I die and my body decomposes and becomes nothing but dust and bones, do you really think that I'm going to be brought back to life? And whenever they were told about the day of judgment, they would mock it, and they would say, well, if you're really honest about the day of judgment and you're really telling us that this will take place, then tell us, when is the day of judgment, right? So the surah comes and responds to all of these, to all of these accusations and mockery. And it begins by swearing by the angels, right? وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا. And we mentioned last week that each of these verses, they are referencing special groups of angels, right? And Nazi'at, the angels that take out the souls of the evil people. And An-Nashitat are the merciful angels that take the souls of the believers. والسابحات سبحا, the angels flying through the heavens. فالسابقات سبقا, those angels that are racing one another to complete Allah's command. فالمدبرات أمرا, and the angels that conduct the affairs, they complete their tasks obediently as given to them by Allah. And then we mentioned the surah goes into the day of judgment, and it talks about the denial of the disbelievers when it comes to the day of judgment. And we stopped last week, I believe, in the verse فَإِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّاهِرَةِ, and then we are now continuing today هَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ مُوسَى. So now Allah Azza wa Jal switches up the language, I guess, or the tone of the surah. Instead of referencing the Quraysh and their disbelievers and the mockery and their challenges against the day of judgment, now Allah tells us a story of the past. And you will find this trend all over the Quran. So this is one of the things that Allah Azza wa Jal references a lot in the Quran, the stories of the previous nations. So sometimes, in this case, it's the story of Musa alayhi salam. In other cases, it's the story of the people of Nuh. In other cases, the people of Hud, the tribe of Ad, the tribe of Thamud, the prophet Lut or prophet Ibrahim, and all of these prophets. So the Quran, you will find it references all of these stories, and it refers back to them to teach us a lesson. And this is the important part here, because a lot of us here, I know for many of us here, you guys are already aware of these prophet stories, okay? So I'm not coming here to tell you, oh, who is Prophet Musa or who is Fir'aun, okay? Many of us already know these details, but what many of us, unfortunately, perhaps because of the way we've been taught these things, we kind of take them as if they're kind of bedtime stories, right? That, oh, Musa was against this, really evil guy called Fir'aun. And then, Musa ran away and then he hit his stick and boom, and the sea split in half, right? So, um, for many of us, perhaps when we were little kids, we thought of these as really cool stories, and they were fun to listen to, and especially when it was the first time, it really pulled you, right? They were really fun to listen to because of all of these details, and when you hear about the miracles of the prophets and whatnot, right? So the reason why Allah gives you these stories is not so that He can entertain you, okay? Yes, they're fun to read and they're fun to understand, but there is a bigger message behind these stories. There's a bigger wisdom behind Allah Azza wa Jal revealing these stories for us. And we will be discussing these wisdoms, inshallah, as we encounter the stories of these prophets. So in this case, Allah Azza wa Jal begins with Prophet Musa. So we'll quickly go over the verses and then we'll talk about the context behind them, inshallah. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, هل أتاك حديث موسى. So Allah Azza wa Jal is now speaking to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and He's telling him, have you heard the story of Musa? إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى. That when the Lord of Musa called out to Musa alayhi salam in the sacred valley called Tuwa. So this word Tuwa, it is a name of the valley where Allah Azza wa Jal spoke to Musa alayhi salam. And we know, or maybe you don't know, Musa alayhi salam, he was a prophet. He's a special among the prophets because he spoke to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah spoke to him directly, like he actually heard Allah. He did not see Allah, of course, but he spoke to him. But where did he speak to him? He spoke to him in a specific location, and that was called Tuwa, in the valley of Tuwa. What did Allah talk to Prophet Musa alayhi salam about? He told him, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. So Allah commanded him. اذهب is a commandment. Go to Fir'aun. Why? إِنَّهُ طَغَى. He has transgressed, he has crossed every single red boundary. فَقُلْ, go to Fir'aun and tell him, هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّى. O Fir'aun, would you be willing to purify yourself? وَأَهْدِيَكَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَتَخْشَى. And would you allow me to guide you to Allah so that you can have fear and awe towards Allah? فأراه الآية الكبرى. So then Musa alayhi salam, he showed Fir'aun the great sign. Again, what is the great sign? We'll talk about it in a second. فكذب وطغى. That Fir'aun responded by denying and disobeying Allah Azza wa Jal. ثم أدبر يسعى. And then he turned his back against the truth. And يسعى, and he not only did he just turn away, it's one thing for someone to just turn away from the truth and just walk away and call it a day. And it's another thing for someone to actively fight against the truth. So this is yas'a here. He's actually putting effort against the truth. فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى. فَحَشَرَ, he grouped his people. He gathered and he summoned all of his people. فَنَادَى, and he called out to them and he said, فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. So he proclaimed in front of all these people that he gathered and he said, I am your Lord. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. He says, I am your Lord. I am the Most High. Al-A'la. فَأَخَذَهُ اللَّهُ نَكَالَ الْآخِرَةِ وَالْأُولَى. And so as a result of all of this, Allah made him as an example. Allah overtook him. Allah got rid of Fir'aun and he made it as an example in this life and in the hereafter. And Allah concludes the section and He says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِمَنْ يَخْشَى. That surely in all of this is a lesson for anybody who stands who has fear of Allah and stands in awe of Allah Azza wa Jal. You have your hand raised. Do you have a question or? So if you, by the way, if you have questions, obviously I don't want you to just unmute and start talking because having 10 people unmute at the same time and talk will be really, really messy. So you can just use the Zoom feature here where you can raise your hand and I will know that you want to ask a question or something. So uh, did you purposely raise your hand or you just playing playing or okay then yeah you can unmute and speak up if you have something.
Sheikh, you said كذب وطغى. Is it طغى or عصى?
وعصى sorry that was a slip of the tongue. Uh, yeah جزاك الله خيرا for the correction. So فكذب وعصى. عصى is to disobey. جزاك الله خيرا. So just to kind of give ourselves a quick maybe for those of us who are listening to the story of Musa for the first time, maybe you don't know it. Maybe for some of us, we already know some details. Obviously, the story of Musa alayhi salam is a very long story, okay? And this is not the time or place to go over all of the details. So we'll just kind of give you a very brief overview of the story of Musa alayhi salam, as is revealed in Surah Al-Nazi'at. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us that there is someone called Musa alayhi salam, right? And Allah chose him to become a prophet and he would speak to him in the sacred valley called Tuwa. And Tuwa, uh, if you go and do a little bit of research, we don't really know the exact Allahu Alam. It is in the region of Egypt. It's called Tur Sina. The Sinai, it's called, I think in English, they call it the Sinai region, right? The Sinai region. So that is where Allah Azza wa Jal spoke to Musa alayhi salam and he first received the revelation. And the whole purpose behind the revelation was for Allah to tell Musa, go to Fir'aun and invite him to fear Allah and give him da'wah. And this is very interesting, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, who was Fir'aun? Okay. By the way, to clear a common misconception here, the name of the guy was not Fir'aun. Okay. Fir'aun is not a name. Fir'aun is a title. Okay. It's like, for example, Canada has a prime minister. That prime minister is not the name of the guy, okay? Prime minister is his title. So, the some countries they have a president, okay? So Fir'aun is a title. Fir'aun is not actually his name. We don't actually know his real name. His name has not been preserved, but he was Fir'aun, and Fir'aun was a title at the time for the one who was in control of the area of Egypt. And he was very powerful. Fir'aun was very powerful, and he was extremely arrogant. He thought that he was above everybody else, Subhanallah, Allah Azza wa Jalla literally tells you in the Quran, He declared Himself to be the Lord of everybody. He declared Himself, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. This is like the ultimate level of arrogance and kibr, right? And of the crimes that, he committed so many crimes, but of the things that he would do. So at the time there was a nation called the nation of Banu Israel, the children of Israel. And so Fir'aun would oppress them and he would do very bad things to them. He would enslave their men, he would kill baby boys, like little baby boys, he would kill them, and he would put their ladies into servitude. And so Allah Azza wa Jal commanded Musa, go to this tyrant, go to this evil man, and show him some of our signs, and tell him to fear Allah, and tell him to stop what he's doing, and tell him to turn back to Allah. And Allah Azza wa Jal gave Musa alayhi salam several miracles to support him, right? And we all know perhaps, Musa, he had a stick, right, that he would walk with, and he would use it to, Musa used to be a shepherd. He had sheep with him, so he would use the stick to take care of his flock. So Allah told Musa, drop your cane, drop your stick, and it would turn into a real snake. Another miracle that Allah mentions in the Quran, that Musa would put his hand in his pocket, and then when he takes it out, his hand would be shining very brightly. And he had many other miracles, which we're not going to go about in detail. But despite being shown all of these miracles, Fir'aun rejected the truth. فَكَذَّبَ وَعَصَى. So he rejected the truth completely. He denied the message, and he put effort. أَدْبَرَ يَسْعَى. Right? So he made effort to stop Musa alayhi salam and to prevent his message from being spread. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that innahu tagha, he has transgressed and he has crossed every single red line. Now, what's interesting here is, think about it this way. Now, if Fir'aun were to be alive today, okay, And perhaps, we have other versions of Fir'aun that are alive today, right? And they're committing all sorts of crimes. Maybe for me and you, we'd be like, bro, just let's execute these people. Let's just get rid of them. We don't want them to be alive. We don't want them to be doing what they do. What did Allah Azza wa Jal tell Musa alayhi salam? He's being sent to the most evil person out there. He's telling them, اذهب إلى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى. Musa alayhi salam was commanded to go, don't insult Fir'aun, don't challenge him, don't provoke him. No, speak with him gently, speak with mercy, speak with wisdom, and more importantly, have a sincere intention that you're speaking with Fir'aun so you can guide him to the truth. And there's an important lesson here. Many of us, perhaps, we don't see it in the story of Fir'aun, that even the most evil people, even the worst criminal of humanity, should always be given a chance to repent. They should be given a chance to turn to Allah. And that is what Musa offered Fir'aun. But Fir'aun, of course, he mocked this and he denied it and he turned away. He did not want any of this. And so eventually the story goes and continues. We're skipping obviously over a lot of details. So Fir'aun later chases Musa along with the Banu Israel until they reached the sea. So now they were surrounded. Behind them was the army. In front of them was the sea. There was nowhere for them to go. The Banu Israel, they thought this was the end of the road. Musa didn't know what to do, but he had trust in Allah that Allah will take care of him. And so Allah commanded Musa, hit your stick on the sea, and that is where the sea actually split. And we know, of course, Musa alayhi salam and his followers safely crossed the sea, whereas when Fir'aun and his soldiers tried to cross, the sea closed upon them and they all drowned. And so Allah concludes this section and He says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِمَنْ يَخْشَى. فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى. That Allah made an Fir'aun as an example for all of humanity, whether they are alive or whether they are or in the hereafter as well. Now, how did Allah make an example out of him? Allah is telling us very, very clearly, and subhanAllah, we need to understand this, especially in light of what is happening today in our world. Allah Azza wa Jal, even the strongest and the most powerful nations and the most powerful rulers with the strongest military and the strongest forces, if they are transgressing, they will be humiliated in this life. When? I don't know. Okay, nobody can predict when will Allah's punishment come down, but Allah is promising here, just like we did with Fir'aun. Do you think we can't do the same thing today with all of these people today that are killing innocent people in Palestine, who are killing innocent people in other places in the world, who are oppressing innocent people? Do you think that just like Allah destroyed Fir'aun, do you really think that Allah cannot destroy these people? So this is Allah Azza wa Jalla declaring that just like it happened, just like what happened to Fir'aun, we can also do to all of these evil people as well. And of course, at that time, that warning was sent towards the Quraysh, who were being arrogant and they were oppressing the Muslims. And so the story of Fir'aun was sent to us as a warning and as a lesson so that we can fear Allah Azza wa Jal, so that we can recognize that Allah, whenever He wants to, He can destroy those who are oppressors. Then Allah Azza wa Jal moves on to the next section of the next portion of the surah. So then and then Allah Azza wa Jal is addressing, and this is going to be similar to what we had discussed previously in Surah Al-Naba. Now Allah Azza wa Jal is now giving evidence, proofs of resurrection, of the reality of the day of judgment, and that there shall be a day that you will be brought back to life. As Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاء بَنَاهَا. Right? So Allah here is asking a rhetorical question. You guys know what is a rhetorical question? There are certain,
Yes.
yeah. So a rhetorical question, for those of us who don't know, it's a question that you ask, not so that you can get the answer for. Okay, you already know the answer for it, but it's a question that you're asking to prove a point. So Allah here is asking a rhetorical question. Which do you think is harder to create? Is it you, the human being, or the sky? And then Allah Azza wa Jalla declares, He built it. Banaha. Allah was the one who built the sky. رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا. That Allah raised it and He made the sky very high. فَسَوَّاهَا, and He perfected it. You will not find any perfections in the sky. وَأَغْطَشَ لَيْلَهَا وَأَخْرَجَ ضُحَاهَا. And Allah dimmed the night sky, so made the night dark, and He made the daytime clear and bright, the morning light. وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. And as for the earth, the ard, right? دَحَاهَا, that He spread it out so that we can walk on it, so that we can live on it, so that you can have a house and you can drive your car and do all of these things. أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها. أخرج منها, He brought out of this earth ماءها, He brought out the water, ومرعاها, and all the greenery, the plants, the vegetation, trees, gardens, plants, food that we can eat. والجبال أرساها, and he created the mountains as an anchor for this earth, right? So we mentioned previously in Surah An-Naba that the mountains, subhanAllah, this is one of the most amazing scientific discoveries, that mountains, they balance the earth, right? Without the mountains, the earth would not be stable. So Allah anchored the earth using these mountains. Why did He do all of this? مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. All of this has been done مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ. مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ. مَتَاعًا here means provision. It's a source of provision. It's a source of benefit for you. It's a source of enjoyment for you. مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. So that you can, it's a provision and benefit for you and for your animals. So Allah Azza wa Jal, clearly He's making a point here. Like, what do you think is more difficult to create? Right? Is it the human or is it the universe? Think about, subhanAllah, the creation of the universe. To this day, the greatest organization, the greatest research facility that researches universe and outer space and the stars. We all know, maybe you've heard of the company NASA, right? To this day, they don't understand fully, or maybe they only know a little bit about how huge this universe is. And every single day they make more discoveries, right? Perhaps, a couple hundred years ago, we didn't understand, scientists at the time, maybe they didn't understand how big this universe is. They thought maybe it's just the sun and the moon and the earth. And then as technology evolved, they were like, whoa, actually, there's other planets in our solar system. Surely the universe is just our solar system. And then as more telescopes and satellites came and were created, they discovered, whoa, actually, we're just a little dot. Have you guys ever Googled or watched those shows on TV or on National Geographic, or, those documentaries that show you a picture of Earth, from millions of light years away, right? Right? And even this term light years, like, it's subhanAllah, when we say that there is a star that is 1 million light years away. You know what 1 million light years away means? It means that if you were to travel at the speed of light for 1 million years, that's how long it will take you to reach that star. Can you even begin to understand how vast and how big and how huge this universe is? How many stars are there? How many planets are there? SubhanAllah, there are so many videos on YouTube, and they show you, they compare the sizes of the planets, right? So they show you, the Earth is, this big, and then they will show you the sun is that big, and then they will show you this other star is this big, and then they will show you at the end that, at the end of the day, you're just a teeny tiny speck in this universe. You're not, you're like, even the bacteria that is in your body is bigger than you in comparison to how big this universe is. And yet, the human being really thinks that he's a big deal. You really think that you own this universe? You really think that you're the big deal? This is what Allah is saying. أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا. Do you really think you're that big of a deal? أَمِ السَّمَاءُ بَنَاهَا. Have you not thought about the creation of this universe, these galaxies, these stars, the sun? And it's so perfect. رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا. You will not find any flaws. You will not find any glitches in the universe. Everything is so perfect. And Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions the other blessings as well. Allah says, look, I created the night. I made the night for you to rest. I created the day and the sunlight and the morning light, and I made it for you to work and for you to live your daily lives. I created the water and I brought it out for you to drink. I created plants and trees and different fruits and different types of foods so that you can eat. I'm the one who created the mountains and I made this earth stable for you. I'm the one who gave you animals. Allah Azza wa Jalla is declaring here, do you honestly think with your brain that Allah gave you, with this understanding that you have about the universe, do you really think the one who created all of this cannot bring you, an insignificant, teeny tiny, puny human being, that he cannot bring you back to life? Surely Allah Azza wa Jal can bring us back to life. So this is the evidence and the proof that Allah Azza wa Jal is establishing in Surah Al-Nazi'at to respond to the Quraysh and to us as well, to tell us it's very easy for Allah Azza wa Jal. Bringing us back to life is not challenging to Allah. It is something very simple to Allah Azza wa Jal. I'm gonna pause here. I saw someone had raised their hands earlier, uh, and it seems like they had put it down now. So yes, okay. You wanna if you're raising your hand, do you wanna unmute and ask, or if you wanna type or whatever?
So my question was, when you said that Allah He gave a miracle to Musa that his hand becomes shiny. In the Quran, it says it becomes white. Does it become shiny or white?
So it's white. So you're right. I mean, the wording in the Quran, it says bayda, which literally means white. So you can eat, honestly, both ways works, right? At the end of the day, um, it becomes white, and some scholars, they explain that it becomes shiny to the people who look at it. So whether it is this or whether it is that, the point here is that that it was a miracle. It was something unusual, right? Like someone who puts his hand. If I put my hand in my pocket in my thawb right now, right, like this pocket, you guys should see my normal hand, like it shouldn't come out, right? So the point here is it came out as something very unusual and it caught the eye of people, like, whoa, what happened to his hand, right? So whether it's shiny or white, the point here is it was something unusual. It was a miracle. Does that make sense?
So, yeah. So does it mean his skin color is actually, lighter or darker?
So
Or it's not
the actual skin color of Musa alayhi salam, we're actually given his description in one of the ahadith. The Musa alayhi salam, he had a darker skin tone. So like he was like he had a brownish, he had a brown skin tone, but on the darker side. So for someone with his skin tone to now display a white hand slash shiny hand, this was definitely something unusual. Does that answer
Thank
your
you.
question? Okay. And I guess one thing also it just kind of came to my mind, and I kind of wanted to mention it earlier, but I forgot. Of the things that it comes and shows us over here, that subhanallah, uh, sometimes I hear it among us here, right, in among the youth and the children especially, and they comment when they read about all of these miracles and all of these things, right? They say that, well, wouldn't it be nice if Allah shows us a miracle today, right? That, I'm a Muslim, I believe in Allah, yeah, I pray and I do all of these good things, but, you know, if only, these miracles that Allah gave to these prophets, if Allah just it gives them to us today, then surely a lot of people will believe, right? Right? Sometimes people think about it that way. But Allah Azza wa Jalla is showing you here that subhanallah, even if people were shown clear miracles, some people, because of the state of their hearts, they will not accept it. And they will continue to deny no matter what proofs and what, even if you were to bring down, like, do some crazy miracles to them, you were to control the moon and control the sun and show them angels and do all of these things, some people, subhanallah, they would still refuse to believe because of the arrogance that lives in their hearts. Okay, so just kind of a comment over here. Were there any other questions, or should I continue? Just pause for a second. Okay. Then Allah Azza wa Jal, he moves on to the next portion of the surah. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى. فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى. So Allah now, after mentioning all of these blessings and after mentioning the reality of the evidence that He is able to bring us back to life, then Allah Azza wa Jalla says that when الطامة الكبرى actually takes place. Now, what is الطامة الكبرى? It is one of the names of the Day of Judgment. One of the names of the Day of Judgment is called الطامة الكبرى. It is a description of the Day of Judgment. It is called the overwhelming disaster. Why is it called الطامة الكبرى? الطامة means like a calamity, a big problem, a disaster, right? Al-Kubra, the greatest. Why is it called الطامة الكبرى? Because, again, as I had mentioned previously in the Tafsir of Surah Al-Naba, the Day of Judgment is something that none of us will ever be able to understand how terrifying and horrifying it actually is, right? And I mentioned it, right? Like when we say Day of Judgment, every one of us, we imagine something in our heads, right? Maybe to some of us, we imagine, like, I don't know, like a big earthquake, people screaming left and right, meteors falling from the sky, volcanoes going crazy. Like, I don't know. Everybody kind of imagines something different when we start to think about the Day of Judgment. But what Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying here, that the Day of Judgment is at-tammatul kubra. What does that mean? It means it's worse than your worst nightmares. Whatever you're thinking about the Day of Judgment, the reality of the Day of Judgment is actually, it is way worse than anything that you can imagine. It will overwhelm any other disaster that you can think about. Any kind of imagination that you have for the Day of Judgment, nothing in human history even comes close to how terrifying and horrifying that day will be. فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى. What will happen? يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى. On that day, when people see the Day of Judgment with their own two eyes, every person will remember all of the efforts that they had done in this world, good and the bad. And obviously, for someone who did good, they realize that, oh, we knew that this was going to come. We prepared. And this is why they're actually not going to be terrified. They're going to be happy because we're like, okay, well, that means that everything I believed in was actually true. That means that Jannah is true. It means that Allah is true. And if all of this was true, then surely Allah mentions in the Quran that He will protect the believers on the Day of Judgment. So the believer who put his energy into obeying Allah, he's going to be happy. He's chilling. But for the people who strove in this world, sa'a here means sa'a means to strive, to put an effort towards something. As for the person who lived their life an empty life, they're gonna be terrified on the Day of Judgment, right? وَبُرِّزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِمَنْ يَرَى. وَبُرِّزَت means it's put up on display. Okay? When you see baraza or burriza or burrizat or anything, any similar wording in the Quran, it means something that was hidden now has been taken out and made open for everybody to look out. What has been made open for everybody to look at in this case? وَبُرِّزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِمَنْ يَرَى. The Jahim, the hellfire, shall be made visible for all of humanity to see, believers and disbelievers. And this is a reality that Allah mentions many, many times over and over in the Quran, in a surah that perhaps many of us we have memorized. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in Surah Al-Takathur, لَتَرَوُنَّ الْجَحِيمِ. You shall definitely see hellfire. ثُمَّ لَتَرَوُنَّهَا عَيْنَ الْيَقِينِ. You will see it with your own two eyes. It's not just an imagination. No, you will actually see it. And that is what Allah is referencing here. Hellfire will be taken out for everybody to display. Then Allah Azza wa Jal divides people into two groups. And of course, by the way, why does Allah Azza wa Jal bringing out the hellfire here? Is so that people can realize the results of the choices that they have made in this life, right? So if people made the right choices, they prayed their 5 times a day, they feared Allah, they avoided the haram, they understand the result of my actions will be that I'm saved from this hellfire. So by them seeing the hellfire, they're actually relieved that we are not going to be the ones entering this hellfire. Whereas the people that committed crimes in the eyes of Allah, they disobeyed Allah, they did a lot of haram, they realize that we're in deep trouble over here. This hellfire is something that we're going to have to deal with. So then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions it to us. He mentions it to us and makes it very clear. فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى. So Allah Azza wa Jal then here describes two categories of people. And every single one in humanity falls into one of these two categories. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He begins and He says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى. As for the people that transgressed, and we mentioned several times before, what does it really mean to transgress? Transgress is someone who goes above and beyond, okay? It's not just simply you disobeyed Allah. These are people who disobeyed Allah, who ignored all warnings, who insisted on not obeying Allah, and things like this. So, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. What does آثَرَ mean? آثَرَ means to prefer something, okay? To prefer something over something else. وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا means, and athara is used, by the way, in many different locations in the Quran. So athara or yu'thiruna or yu'thir or ithar, or many different derivations of the same word, right? وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. So as for those who transgressed and they preferred the dunya over the akhirah, فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. That for those people, that hellfire that they're looking at, that is what shall be their final destination. That shall be their that shall be their home, their new home. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. And then the second category of people, they are those مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. خَافَ means to be scared, to have fear. مَقَامَ means the status or the standing of who? رَبِّهِ, of Allah. So they are those who had fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. They knew that Allah was watching them. They knew that there was good deeds and bad deeds. They knew that there was going to be a day of judgment. They knew that there's going to be a Jannah and Jahannam. They didn't just know it. In fact, they were worried about it. They were worried, okay, where do I stand here? Am I, am I doing sins? Am I upsetting Allah Azza wa Jalla? Am I disobeying Allah? And if I'm disobeying, what will happen to me, right? So they're constantly worried, about Allah, about what will happen to them. خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. So that's number one. وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. Naha means to restrain. Naha النَّفْسَ, and nafs is the soul. So everybody has a soul. وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. So they restrain their own souls from any evil desires. فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. That to those people, Jannah shall be their home. So these people, and we have to make it clear here, these people are not necessarily perfect, okay? There is no perfect Muslim in this world. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. Anybody who claims that he's perfect, then he's lying, okay? There is no perfect Muslim in the world. We all have shortcomings. We all fall into sins. We all sometimes end up falling into certain actions and we know that we shouldn't be doing them. But a believer in Allah later would regret these actions and would take actions to make up for those sins that he had fallen into. So these are people who would try to control their desires. We all sometimes get negative thoughts, or not just negative thoughts, evil thoughts, right? Thoughts to go and do something that is haram. Sometimes, and perhaps, maybe some of us, we know what that means, right? Sometimes you just, for absolutely no reason, you're just chilling at home and you just look at your brother or at your sister, and all of a sudden you just get the urge or the thought, bro, just smack him, right? Just slap him across the face and see what happens, right? And you're just like, well, where is this coming from, right? Or sometimes, more realistically, sometimes a person might be sitting all alone in the room and all of a sudden a negative or an evil thought comes to them. It's like, go and look at something that is haram. Nobody's watching you, right? Or someone comes and disrespects you, and then all of a sudden you're having evil thoughts. Go and show this person who's boss, right? Go beat him up. Go and start roasting him. Go and, destroy his whole family from now until the seventh generation, right? Like go and show this person not to mess around with you anymore, right? So a believer is
Gotta go,
someone
bye.
Sorry? Okay. So
Excuse me, I
a
just gotta
believer
go.
is someone who controls these desires or these urges. And again, we all sometimes we fall or we get into these we get these urges, but as a believer, you're responsible to combat and to control these desires. And in the case where you do slip and fall into that sin, you repent back to Allah, you realize what you did was wrong, you regret, you feel a sense of regret, like, why the heck did I do that? I could have done better than this. And you push yourself to obey Allah Azza wa Jal. So that should be the constant state of the believer. So to those people, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Those people, their final destination will be Jannah. And I'll just also add on the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he summarizes it to us in a beautiful summarized way. And he says to us, حُفَّتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ. That Jannah is surrounded by things that you don't like. Okay? وَحُفَّتِ الْجَحِيمُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ. Whereas the hellfire is surrounded by desires. This is important for us to understand. Like, let's be honest here, okay? Not everybody likes to pray 5 times a day. Okay? So when your parents come and tell you, hey, you get up, make wudu, you get up, leave your bed and go make wudu for Fajr. When you're told to go and fast from Fajr till Maghrib for whatever reason, right? It's like, bro, I want to eat my lunch with my friends. I don't want to be fasting. I would rather be playing my video games instead of me praying. I don't even want to be in this halaqa today. Why am I even in the Zoom halaqa today? I would rather be outside, well, maybe not outside with this weather, but I would rather be doing something else with my friends. I would rather be hanging out, right? Some of you are already like looking at the time and like, bro, when is this guy gonna stop blabbering so he can let us go? And I want to go on my way, right? So, like, this is the path to Jannah, right? It's full of things that you don't want to do. But at the end of the day, if you want Jannah, you have to earn it. You have to work towards it. Even though you desire to just have fun, to entertain yourself, to just do and live your life however you want to do, right? And this is what they unfortunately teach in the schools today, and especially in public schools, right? Live your dreams, right? Go chase after your dreams. Go and uh, live according to how do you want, bro. Right? So this is and this is wrong. This is a wrong understanding because we live our life according to the commandments of Allah. Whether you like them or you don't, that's not the point here. There are going to be certain things that you struggle with that you don't like, but if you want Jannah, then that is what you have to go through. However, if a person doesn't care, right? And it's the easiest thing, by the way, the easiest thing in the world is to just let go and do whatever you want to do. You're like, Salah, I don't care. I don't want to be praying. Who cares, right? Or if my parents tell me, did you pray? I can just lie to them and tell them I didn't pray. In fact, why should I listen to my parents in the first place? I want to do whatever I want, right? Or I want to live my life however I want. I want to eat whatever I want. I want to do who will come and tell me what to do. It's the easiest thing in the world to live a life where you just do whatever you want to do. Okay? But that is the straight path leading you into Jahannam. So every person in mankind, every person among mankind, you have a choice. You can make the choice. Which group do you want to be in? Do you want to be in فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى, to be among those who disobey, live your life according to your desires and just do whatever you want? Or do you want to be among those خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ, among those who feared Allah Azza wa Jal, even though their nafs and their soul was whispering bad things to them to do evil things, they would fight against these desires just to remain upon and just to please Allah Azza wa Jal. So everybody here, you have a choice to make. And then Allah Azza wa Jal moves on to the next section of the surah. And in fact, before that, I'll just quickly pause. Were there any questions? Earlier someone had unmuted and I don't know what they were saying, but no questions. Okay. So Allah Azza wa Jal then moves on to the next. We're almost done here, inshallah, and then we'll wrap up. And then comments once again about the Day of Judgment, and this is directly answering the mocking the question that the Quraysh were asking the Rasul in a mocking manner, right? They would ask about, they say, oh, if you're really telling the truth, then tell us when the day of judgment is. And by the way, as Muslims, we have to understand something. Not every question is something that has to be asked. Okay. And I know a lot of us, especially for as youth and teenagers, we just kind of love to question everything around us, and we like to ask everything that's on our mind. And that's not always a bad thing, but nor is it always a good thing. Okay. And the middle ground here is you have to ask yourself, why am I asking this question? Okay. Why am I asking this question? The Quraysh were asking this question not because they actually were interested about the day of judgment. They didn't care about the Quraysh. Many of the kuffar of Quraysh, they didn't care about the day of judgment. The reason why they were asking when is the day of judgment is because they were just making a fool. They were trying to make a fool out of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But there were also, by the way, Sahaba that asked about the day of judgment. We'll get to that in a second. Let's go through the verses first. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا. That, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will come and ask you regarding the hour. أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا, they will say, when will it be? But then Allah comments and He says, فِيمَ أَنْتَ مِنْ ذِكْرَاهَا. It's not your responsibility, Ya Rasulullah, to go and tell them about when the day of judgment. إِلَى رَبِّكَ مُنْتَهَاهَا. Only Allah has access to that knowledge. Nobody knows when the day of judgment will take place. Then what is your job then? إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنذِرُ مَنْ يَخْشَاهَا. That your job, Ya Rasulullah, is not to come and answer all of their questions about when the day of judgment is. Your job is just to warn them and to remind them so that those who have fear of Allah would be reminded. And at the end of the day, this is the purpose as well of everything that we, these lectures and these reminders and the Jum'ah khutbahs that you attend. The whole purpose, in a lot of cases, Allah Mubarak, a lot of you are smart and a lot of you already have Islamic knowledge. And a lot of you, maybe even as we are speaking about this, maybe you already know a lot of the things that we have already discussed. The point here, though, that Allah is mentioning is not so that you can just only know it. It's so that you can be reminded, so that you can remember, and so that you can also act upon that which you have been reminded about. So, the point of these verses here, the section, the surah is trying to teach us, nobody knows when the day of judgment is, not even the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in fact, there is a famous hadith. You guys know, have you guys ever heard of the hadith where Angel Jibreel, he came in disguise as a human being and he began asking him, the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, tell me about Islam, tell me about Iman, tell me about Ihsan, right? There's a famous hadith, perhaps you've heard it from before, right? Among the questions that Jibreel asked was, when is the day of judgment? And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he responded that the one who is being asked does not know any more than the one who is asking. Meaning, in modern day English, I don't know, neither do you. So if not even the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows, and not even Angel Jibreel knows, do you really think that there is anybody today who can claim or can somehow predict when the day of judgment is, right? And I kind of mentioned this previously, right? There's sometimes you hear these movies coming out or predicting the end of times, or even in light of modern days today, some people, they choose to, subhanallah, take certain events that are happening in the world, for example in Palestine, and they say, oh, this means that the day of judgment will be on X, Y, and Z. Subhanallah, who are you to be able to know any of this stuff, right? And so the summary here, and I'll summarize it through an incident that one time happened at the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where one time a man came, a Muslim man came to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he actually asked the same question as the kuffar of Quraysh asked, and he said, when is the day of judgment? Except he was asking the question not out of arrogance, he was actually curious, and he just didn't have the knowledge. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he responds to him with the message that I want to leave you with you. And he says to him, مَا أَعْتَدْتَ لَهَا. what have you prepared for it? Instead of me telling you when is the day of judgment, are you ready today for the day of judgment? That is what you should be concerned about. Instead of today trying to search for, look at the events that are happening in the world and search for the signs of the day of judgment and try to see that, the day of judgment is very close because, this is happening in the world and that is happening. Why don't you spend that time to actually fix yourself? Because at the end of the day, your day of judgment may be tonight. Because as soon as you meet the angel of death, that's now your day of judgment. Khalas. You're basically, there's nothing that you can do anymore now until the real day of judgment takes place now. So the point here is, instead of being worried about when is the day of judgment, you should be more concerned about preparing for the day of judgment. And إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنذِرُ مَنْ يَخْشَاهَا, the job of the Rasul ﷺ was to warn and to prepare others for the day of judgment. So you also have a job to do. Every single one of you here. You don't have to be a scholar. You don't have to be a sheikh. You don't need to have a long beard or anything like that. All you need to do is to be a real believer. You have a job to warn others about the day of judgment, to remind those who are around you, whether it is family members, whether it is your friends, whether it is whatever, right? You see someone doing something wrong. Your job is to advise them and warn them that there shall be a day that you shall be taken into account. And you do it just like Musa alayhi salam did. You do it with wisdom, you do it with mercy, and you do it with gentleness and kindness. And we'll conclude with the last verse. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, كَأَنَّهُمْ يَوْمَ يَرَوْنَهَا لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. That on the day, كَأَنَّهُمْ يَوْمَ يَرَوْنَهَا, on the day where they actually see the day of judgment and they see the hellfire, لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. It will be as if these people, they will feel as if that this dunya, this life that they have lived, was nothing more than just an evening or just a single morning. Subhanallah. So the entire humanity, all of mankind on the day of judgment, whether you only lived for 10 years or 50 years, or whether you lived for 100 years, a person standing on the day of judgment will look back and all of this will only feel like a few hours. All of these struggles that you had, everything that you went through in this life, all of it will feel like just a couple of hours. It's just as if you spent only a couple of hours in this world. And this comes to show you, by the way, subhanallah, the reality of the day of judgment and perhaps how long the day of judgment is. So the surah concludes with a reminder. Life is very short, my friends, okay? This life that you're living, yes, right now you're all young, but life will flash by like this, okay? It will fly very much faster than you think. And at the end of the day, what really matters is, what have you accomplished in your life for your akhirah? On the day of judgment, bro, nobody's gonna care about your family. Nobody's gonna care about how big your house is, or how cool your car is, or how fast it can drive, or how amazing the engine sounds. Nobody cares whether you're popular or not. Nobody cares who you are on the day of judgment. The only thing that you have for you on the day of judgment are the things that you have, is the effort that you have put forward in this world in terms of your own deeds. So we'll quickly conclude the surah with just a few lessons that inshallah we can take with us. First and foremost, reminder, through the surah, the story of Fir'aun and Musa, that the dangers of arrogance. Inshallah, none of us will be as arrogant as Fir'aun. However, arrogance is a real disease. To feel like you are better than other people, to feel like you are above than others, even when you have power, or even if you have wealth, or even if you have a lot of people supporting and backing you up. Well, Fir'aun had all of that. None of it saved him in this world, nor shall it save him in the hereafter. Also, the surah teaches us about the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal as a reminder that when you're walking in the park, when you're driving, when you're just outside, you look at the stars, you look at the moon, you see the mountains, when you go to the ocean, when you see the snow coming down or the rain coming down, when you're, on the grocery, you're in the shopping, you're in the store, like Superstore or No Frills or something, and you're seeing the, the different plants and the different fruits. Who created all of this? And what was it created for? Allah created all of it as a sign of his existence and a sign of, as an evidence of his power, of his ability to bring you all back to life. Of the lessons that the surah also teaches us, don't live for this world, okay? Your focus should not be this world. Now, I'm not saying don't be successful in this world, okay? You guys are all going to school, you're trying to get good grades, and so that inshallah you can go to, okay, bro, keep those expressions for yourself, bro. Okay. In fact, I'm gonna just go ahead and close your camera, bro. Like, you're such a weirdo. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, basically, don't make it your goal to just live for this world and only for this world, right? You're the reason why you're going to school. Yes, you want to be successful in this world. You want to get a good job. You want to, have a good life in the future. You want to make money. You want to buy a car. You want to have a house. That's okay. This is all things that Allah made halal for you, but it's not the goal. And the problem here today in 2026 is people have made it a goal to make and collect as much money as possible. And people are living their life with this understanding that if I have a lot of money, I'm gonna be happy. And if I don't own a lot of things, that means I'm gonna live a tough life. That's not why you're living. Ask yourself, why are you even alive today? Why is Allah keeping you alive today? The reason you're alive today is so Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving you another chance to turn back to Allah Azza wa Jalla, to please Allah, and to work towards your akhirah. So don't live only for this world. It's not about social media, having as much likes or followers, money, popularity, having fun. All of these are things that are temporary. One day the only thing that you're going to have left for you are your deeds that you have. Of the lessons that we learn, that if you want to be among those who are saved on the day of judgment, you have a job to control your desire. You have a responsibility. Allah created our soul, and it gets influenced by the environment that is around it. So sometimes, and for the vast majority of humanity, people have desires. Sometimes they're halal desires, like people have a desire to eat or to drink, right? Things which are halal, of course. And sometimes soul whispers evil desires to go and do something which is haram, to say vulgar words, or to go and look at something that is haram. So in that case, you need to understand that you have a responsibility to control your desires. You cannot say to Allah on the day of judgment, well, Allah, you created me this way. If you wanted, I wouldn't have been sinning. It's your responsibility. You need to hold yourself back. You need to control. Yourself. And last but not least, Allah Azza wa Jalla is reminding us of the reality that every single person will stand before Allah. So before you make any decision, maybe perhaps before you say anything or before you do anything, ask yourself, would Allah be happy about the thing that I'm doing right now? Okay? None of us obviously can see Allah. But if I could somehow see Allah right now, and I could see Allah right next to me, would Allah be happy about the things that I'm looking at or the things that I'm saying right now? Would this action or this deed that I'm about to commit, is it something that I would want to see in my book of deeds when I receive it on the day of judgment? So think twice, think 3 times before you act upon a certain action. And at the end of the day, the final destination, ultimate success, is someone who obtains Jannah, and ultimate loss is someone who enters into the hellfire. So with that, we come to the conclusion of Surah An-Nazi'at. Before we wrap up, are there any questions? Uh, so inshallah, next week we will be, of course, back in person as I had mentioned, inshallah. And we will also have a mini quiz, just like we did with Surah Al-Naba. We will do the same thing with Surah Al-Nazi'at, inshallah. And next week also, I will be handing out the notes for the remainder of Surah Al-Nazi'at, what we just discussed today, inshallah. I will give it to you in person. And if you want to study for the quiz of next week, you can either use the notes that you already have or watch the recording of the lectures online, inshallah. They will be uploaded within the week, bi'idhnillah. So it's going to be a very short and easy quiz, inshallah, nothing crazy. And then also we will begin the next, the tafsir and the study of the next surah, and that is Surah Abasa, bi'idhnillah. So if you have no more questions, then we will see you next week, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. If you do have questions, you are free to stay and ask. Jazakumullahu khair. So you guys are free to go.